cheating wife brought her lover to the house. What he did next crumbled her. He'll never find out, Travis. Caleb's always traveling for business. Those were the last confident words Janelle Hunter whispered to her lover before he moved into her marital home like he owned it. She thought she had the perfect setup, bringing her affair partner to the house while her trusting husband built their fortune on the road, but had no idea that the cybersecurity genius she married had already turned their home into a digital trap that would capture every kiss, every lie, every moment of betrayal. What happened next will make you question everything you think you know about marriage, love, betrayal, revenge, karma, and the price of deception. Viewers, what will you do if your wife brought her lover to your house? Drop your thought below. Sit back, grab your popcorn, and let's dive into this story of betrayal and revenge. The morning after her public humiliation, Janelle Hunter made a decision that would define the rest of her life. She wasn't going to accept defeat quietly. If Caleb thought he could destroy her without a fight, he was about to learn that a desperate woman with nothing left to lose could be more dangerous than he imagined. From her hotel room, Janelle filed a comprehensive lawsuit against Caleb in Harris County Court, alleging emotional abuse, invasion of privacy, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and demanding full custody of Landon, plus substantial alimony. Her complaint painted a picture of a controlling husband who had psychologically tormented his pregnant wife, then violated her constitutional rights by secretly recording her in their marital home. Catherine Williams, the shark-like attorney Janelle had hired with her last credit card, crafted a narrative that transformed adultery into victimhood. According to their legal strategy, Janelle's affair wasn't betrayal. It was a cry for help from a woman trapped in an emotionally abusive marriage. The pregnancy became their strongest weapon, positioned as evidence of Caleb's vindictive cruelty toward his unborn child. The lawsuit demanded 50% of Caleb's business assets, the family home, full custody of Landon, and $15,000 monthly alimony payments. Catherine's aggressive filing made headlines across Houston, suggesting that the anniversary humiliation was just the beginning of a legal war that would expose Caleb's true character. Meanwhile, Caleb received the lawsuit papers while sitting in his office, reviewing security protocols for a new corporate client. The betrayal had already cost him emotionally, but now Janelle was threatening everything he had built professionally. Her demands would bankrupt his company and separate him from his son, the two things that mattered most in his reconstructed life. That afternoon, Caleb convened an emergency meeting with his legal team. Margaret Chen, Houston's most feared family law specialist, spread the lawsuit documents across the conference table, while two associate attorneys took detailed notes. The room felt like a war council preparing for the battle of their careers. "She's claiming the baby is yours," Margaret noted, reviewing the custody demands. "If that's true, it changes our entire defensive strategy. Texas courts prioritize children's welfare above everything else." Caleb's cybersecurity expertise had prepared him for this moment. He produced a flash drive containing metadata from his surveillance system, financial records showing the exact timeline of the affair, and detailed documentation of every lie Janelle had told their son about her relationship. "The pregnancy occurred during a specific window when I was traveling for business," he explained with clinical precision. "My calendar, credit card records, and hotel receipts establish my location during the conception period. She's gambling that I won't demand paternity testing." Margaret smiled with predatory satisfaction. "She's underestimated us. We'll demand immediate DNA testing, challenge every financial claim with your prenuptial agreement, and countersue for fraud, perjury, and legal fees." As the legal team strategized, Caleb realized that Janelle's desperation had led her to make the same mistake as her lover. She had attacked someone who was better prepared for war than she could imagine. The Harris County Family Court had never seen media attention like the circus that surrounded Hunter versus Hunter on that humid Monday morning in September. Television crews lined the courthouse steps, while reporters positioned themselves to capture every moment of what Houston Chronicle had dubbed the anniversary revenge trial. Judge Patricia Morrison, a veteran of 23 years on the family court bench, called the proceedings to order with the stern authority that had made her legendary among Texas divorce attorneys. The courtroom was packed beyond capacity, with spectators drawn by the scandal that had captivated Houston's elite social circles. Janelle entered wearing a navy maternity dress that emphasized her 6-month pregnancy, her hand protectively placed over her belly in a gesture calculated to evoke judicial sympathy. Catherine Williams had coached her client extensively on courtroom presentation. Every expression, every movement designed to portray a vulnerable woman abandoned by a vindictive husband. Catherine's opening statement was a masterclass in emotional manipulation. "Your Honor, my client stands before this court as a victim of systematic psychological abuse. Mr. Hunter's controlling behavior drove her to seek comfort elsewhere, and when he discovered her moment of weakness, he chose vindictive humiliation over marital counseling. Now he abandons his pregnant wife and refuses to support the child she carries, his own flesh and blood." The demands were staggering. 50% of all marital assets, including Caleb's business equity, full custody of both Landon and the unborn child, $15,000 monthly alimony, and immediate financial support for pregnancy expenses. Catherine painted Caleb as a man who valued money over family, revenge over reconciliation. Margaret Chen's response was surgical in its precision. She methodically presented surveillance footage that destroyed Janelle's victim narrative. Audio recordings of Janelle laughing about her husband's trust, planning to extract maximum benefit from their marriage, and using 8-year-old Landon as cover for her systematic deception. "Your Honor, this is not a case about a desperate woman seeking comfort. This is about calculated fraud, deliberate betrayal, and a mother who exposed her young son to lies and manipulation to facilitate her affair. The plaintiff seeks to be rewarded for her own misconduct." As Margaret presented evidence of financial infidelity, credit card statements showing expensive dinners and hotel rooms during the affair, Judge Morrison's expression grew increasingly stern. But the moment that would define the entire case came when Catherine made her most crucial argument. "My client is 3 months pregnant with Mr. Hunter's child, Your Honor. Texas law demands that we protect the welfare of this unborn baby, regardless of marital disputes." Judge Morrison leaned forward, her voice cutting through the courtroom drama with judicial authority. "Given the serious nature of these paternity claims and their significant impact on potential financial obligations, this court cannot proceed without scientific certainty." The judge's next words would seal Janelle's fate. "I hereby order immediate prenatal DNA testing through Houston Methodist Hospital's certified laboratory. All custody determinations and financial support decisions regarding the unborn child are suspended pending these results. This court will reconvene in 2 weeks to review the findings and render final judgment." The color drained from Janelle's face as she realized her desperate gamble was about to be scientifically tested. Across the aisle, Caleb maintained his composed expression, knowing that truth was about to destroy her final lie. Scientific truth has no mercy for desperate lies. 2 weeks after Judge Morrison ordered the prenatal DNA test, the sealed envelope containing the results sat on the courtroom table like a ticking bomb. Janelle Hunter's entire legal strategy, her financial future, and her last chance at redemption hung on the contents of that single document. The courtroom was packed beyond capacity. Local news crews had positioned cameras to capture every moment of what Houston media had dubbed the anniversary revenge trial. Janelle sat beside Catherine Williams, her hand resting on her growing belly in a gesture that had become her signature move, the protective mother defending her unborn child from a vindictive husband. But across the aisle, Caleb Hunter's expression revealed nothing. Margaret Chen, his attorney, had prepared him for this moment with the clinical precision that had made her Houston's most feared divorce lawyer. They knew what the envelope contained. They had known from the beginning. Judge Morrison opened the sealed results with the gravitas the moment demanded. The courtroom fell silent as she reviewed the laboratory findings, her experienced eyes scanning the scientific data that would determine the trajectory of multiple lives. "The court has received the prenatal DNA analysis conducted by Houston Methodist Hospital's certified laboratory," she announced. "The results conclusively demonstrate that the defendant, Caleb Hunter, is not the biological father of the child carried by the plaintiff." The words hit Janelle like a physical blow. Her carefully constructed house of lies collapsed in real time as reporters scribbled frantically, and cameras captured her moment of complete devastation. Catherine Williams, who had built her entire case on the pregnancy leverage, suddenly had nothing to work with. But Judge Morrison wasn't finished delivering justice. Furthermore, this court finds that the plaintiff knowingly filed false paternity claims in an attempt to secure financial support through fraudulent means. Ms. Hunter, your deliberate deception regarding the biological parentage of your unborn child constitutes perjury and contempt of court. The judge's voice carried the weight of Texas justice as she continued her ruling. The prenuptial agreement signed by both parties is hereby enforced in its entirety. The plaintiff's claims of emotional distress are dismissed as lacking merit, given the substantial evidence of deliberate marital fraud presented by the defendant. Janelle felt her world spinning as the legal consequences mounted. Additionally, this court awards attorney fees and court costs to the defendant, totaling $47,000, to be paid by the plaintiff within 30 days. Catherine Williams tried one final desperate objection, but Judge Morrison silenced her with a look that had intimidated lawyers for 2 decades. Ms. Hunter, you entered this courtroom hoping to profit from your own misconduct. Instead, you have demonstrated that actions have consequences. The child you carry belongs to a man who abandoned you, leaving you to face the results of your choices alone. As the gavel fell, Janelle realized she had lost everything. Her marriage, her home, her financial security, and now her last desperate gamble had backfired spectacularly. The pregnant woman who had tried to deceive the court was about to learn that justice in Texas doesn't negotiate with liars. Poverty has a way of stripping away everything except the truth about who you really are. 3 months after her courtroom humiliation, Janelle Hunter discovered that falling from Houston's elite social circles to the bottom of society's ladder was a faster journey than she had ever imagined possible. The eviction notice arrived on a Tuesday morning at the cramped apartment she could barely afford with her dwindling savings. The $47,000 court judgment had emptied what little remained in her personal accounts, while mounting medical bills from her high-risk pregnancy created debt that grew larger each week. The designer clothes that once defined her status now hung loose on her increasingly frail frame, as stress and poor nutrition took their toll. Catherine Williams had dropped her as a client the moment the DNA results were announced, leaving Janelle to navigate the legal system alone. The appeal she had filed was rejected within weeks. Texas appellate courts showed no sympathy for women who committed perjury while trying to defraud their ex-husbands. The prenuptial agreement stood like an unbreachable wall between her and any hope of financial recovery. Her social circle had vanished overnight. Former friends crossed streets to avoid awkward encounters. Charity organizations quietly removed her from invitation lists, and the country club where she had once hosted fundraising events revoked her membership for non-payment of dues. The woman who had once commanded respect was now Houston's most infamous cautionary tale about the consequences of adultery and deception. The pregnancy became her greatest burden rather than her salvation. At 6 months, complications arose that required expensive specialist care she couldn't afford. Public health clinics became her reality as she sat in waiting rooms with women whose circumstances she had once judged from her privileged perch. The irony wasn't lost on her. The baby that was supposed to secure her future had instead guaranteed her downfall. Meanwhile, Caleb had moved forward with remarkable resilience. His cybersecurity firm landed 3 major contracts after potential clients witnessed his methodical approach to handling threats. The man who had been betrayed had transformed his personal catastrophe into professional credibility. He enrolled Landon in therapy to help process the family upheaval, ensuring his son understood that his mother's choices didn't reflect on his worth or future. Janelle's attempts to contact her son through the school were blocked by court orders that painted her as an emotional threat to the child's stability. The supervised visitation rights she had been granted were contingent on her passing psychological evaluations she couldn't afford and maintaining stable housing she didn't possess. By her 8th month of pregnancy, Janelle was living in a women's shelter, sharing a room with 3 other mothers whose stories of abandonment and financial ruin mirrored her own desperate circumstances. The shelter's social workers tried to help her apply for government assistance, but her previous income levels disqualified her from most programs designed for truly needy families. The woman who had once planned to leave her husband for a better life was now alone, broke, and about to give birth to a child whose father had disappeared without a trace, leaving her to face the consequences of their affair entirely on her own. Life has a way of delivering the most brutal lessons at the most vulnerable moments. Janelle Hunter went into labor on a rain-soaked Thursday night in November, alone in a public hospital ward, where the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead and the smell of disinfectant couldn't mask the desperation that permeated the charity wing. The birth was difficult, complications that wealthy women with private doctors and premium insurance never experienced. Hours of pain without epidural she couldn't afford, attended by overworked residents who treated her like another statistic in Houston's overburdened healthcare system. When her daughter finally arrived, screaming and red-faced, Janelle looked into the baby's eyes and saw only the face of the man who had abandoned them both. The social worker arrived before Janelle had even chosen a name. Child Protective Services had been alerted to her unstable housing situation, her lack of income, and her history of deception in family court. The woman with kind eyes and a clipboard explained that temporary custody would be necessary until Janelle could demonstrate financial stability and suitable living arrangements. The state's primary concern is the welfare of the child, she explained gently but firmly. Foster care will provide the medical attention and stability that you currently cannot offer. Janelle signed the papers with trembling hands, watching as her daughter, the baby she had thought would save her, was carried away by strangers who could provide what she could not: safety, security, and hope for the future. Meanwhile, across town in their suburban home, Caleb Hunter was reading bedtime stories to Landon, who had adapted remarkably well to their new life. The boy's therapy sessions had helped him process his mother's departure, and while he occasionally asked about her, he seemed to understand that some changes were permanent. Father and son had grown closer through their shared experience of betrayal and recovery. Caleb's business continued thriving. The Houston Chronicle had featured him in an article about entrepreneurs who turned personal adversity into professional strength. His methodical approach to exposing deception had earned him contracts with 3 major corporations who wanted someone who understood that threats could come from within their own organizations. 6 months after giving birth, Janelle sat in a coffee shop downtown, staring at photographs of the daughter she was allowed to see for 2 hours every other week under supervised visitation. The child was thriving in foster care, growing healthy and happy with parents who could provide everything Janelle could not. The irony was perfect and merciless. The woman who had brought her lover home to steal everything her husband had built was now completely alone, working 2 minimum-wage jobs to pay court-ordered restitution while living in government-subsidized housing. Her lover had vanished without consequence, leaving behind only the destruction of choices that echoed through generations. But perhaps the most devastating consequence was the loss of her children's respect and love. Landon's therapy sessions had helped him understand that his mother's choices didn't define his worth, but they had also helped him realize that trust, once shattered by deception, might never fully heal. Her infant daughter would grow up knowing her biological mother only through supervised visits and social worker reports. As evening fell over Houston, Janelle walked to her job at a late-night diner, finally understanding the true price of bringing betrayal into the sacred space of family. She had traded a lifetime of security, love, and respect for moments of passion with a man who disappeared the instant complications arose. The moral of this story isn't just about the consequences of adultery. It's about the devastating price of systematic deception, the permanent damage caused when we use our own children as accomplices to betrayal, and the reality that some mistakes echo through generations. What do you think about Janelle's complete destruction? Was Caleb's methodical revenge justified, or did he go too far? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more interesting and true-to-life stories.